All right, I am now recording. Welcome to week 3. No school on Monday, in case you're watching this later and weren't actually in class when we talked about it. Today we are going to go over a couple of different concepts within the Python programming language, which are analogous to every other language out there, but we're going to show some different ways Python does things. We'll talk about Boolean values, not just the Boolean data type, but what it means to have a Boolean value and how that applies to conditional statements like if, etc. And then we'll go through some detail on if, else, if, and else. I'm hoping that takes 45 minutes or so. Then we'll do some coding and see how it goes. So here's an example that I think is going to be the foundation of what we're going to talk about tonight. In this block of code, we have a couple of different car manufacturers. And we have the requirement that we need to print out all the car manufacturers in, title case with the first case uppercased, unless it's BMW. If it's BMW, we want to print it out all capitals because it's an abbreviation, and so we want to print out all BMW capitals. So to do that, we are going to start with our list of cars, like we talked at length last week about. That list of cars has 4 string values in it: Audi, BMW, Subaru, and Toyota. And then we'll do a for loop on the cars list. Each iteration of that list will have a car variable, and one of those strings will be assigned to it. So the first line after the for loop is an if statement. So in this case, we read this like if car equals BMW. So you'll see it's a double equals for comparison, and then we do a string value. If the car equals BMW, we will print the car.upper. .upper was the string function we talked about that capitalized every letter in the string. Otherwise, or else, we'll print the car using the title function on the string class, where it will print out the first letter capital and the rest lowercase. I am using print here because I'm doing some actual work with the print and not typing out debug kind of statements, as my little caveat at the bottom. But the format for these blocks, we talked last week about the colon after the for loop, the colon after an if block, the colon after the else. The colon is effectively saying the code following this is what matters. So if car equals BMW, do this code that follows. And all those colons are, the next lines are always indented to match that indentation. Pretty straightforward? Sweet. So a Boolean expression is to determine if a statement evaluates to true or false. So these are conditionals or conditions. We do have a Boolean data type in Python with the values of true and false. Notice they're capital T, capital F. Those are the keywords for true and false. A lowercase t is not the keyword for true. And if you try to use it, you'll get an exception saying the name true is not defined. You could use the word true as a variable name, but you don't want to do that. So capital T, capital F for trues and false. Okay, another data type for us. So at the heart of every if statement is an expression that can be evaluated as true or false. This is a conditional test. So checking for equality, again, it's double equals. So the first line here, we're assigning the string BMW to car. Notice it is a single equal sign. The second line is a double equal sign to compare the two values. And the value of that comparison in this case is true because car equals BMW. In the next example, car equals Audi. Well, we're seeing if car equals BMW, and it does not, therefore it is false. Testing strings is case sensitive, So capitals, lowercases, they matter. We have a capital Audi as the car variable, but we are checking it against lowercase Audi, and you can see that those are not comparison true. Those are not the same values. A trick to checking insensitive comparisons, you can capitalize or you can lowercase whatever the strings are, and you can do a comparison that way. It's kind of the easiest way to do it. Cool. We can also check for inequality. Much like we had the double equals for equality, we can put an exclamation point in front of the equals to check for inequality. And in this case, we have a string variable called requested topping, assigned the value of mushrooms. We're comparing it to anchovies in a checking for inequality, and they are not the same, therefore inequality equals true. Hopefully this is all ringing a bell. It's Info 350 is back in the mind somewhere. We did some coding and it all works the same. True becomes false, false becomes true. You're inverting the comparison. For numbers, we have all the numerical comparisons that you can think about. Equality, not equal, less than equal to, greater than equal to. And it's the same kind of structure within the language. Here we have the variable age equals 17. If age is less than 21, we will print out no drink for you. And in that code, no drink for you because you are not 21. I know I'm going one to one. Pause me if you have any questions, concerns, thoughts. We can also check for multiple conditions within one line of code. Example here, I have two variables, age 0 and age 1. Age 0 is 22, age 1 is 18. My condition says if age 0 is greater than 21 and age 1 is greater than 21, greater than or equal to 21, that could evaluate to true. But in this case, since age 1 is under 21, it evaluates to false. So we have ands and we have ors. I made some little truth tables. If the first value is true in an and the second value is true, the resulting value will be true. If one of the values is false and one is true, and evaluates to false. Continue on the truth table. If either of them are false or both of them are false, an and becomes false. And or, if either of the values are true, it all evaluates to true. It's pretty logical. Does the truth table confuse you or help you?
Helps.
Okay. One very nice structure of Python is we can check if a value is in a list by using the same concept. You can use this as in an if statement if you wanted to. If we have an array or a list of requested toppings, we can have this statement, mushrooms is a value in the list. So mushrooms is a value where we want to see if it's in the list. There's a simple in keyword to say, is this in the list? And that evaluates to true if that value is in the list. Case sensitive. And so I wanted to verify that, so I'm testing bacon, and bacon was not in my list, so it returned a false. The equivalent of the exclamation point on the equals for inequality check is not. So user not in band users. So band users is Andrew, Carolina, and David. User is Mary. Is Mary not in the band users? She is not, therefore it is true. So if you were building a website or guest list or something like that, and you wanted to make sure the user or the person at your website or your door is not in the naughty list, then you would do is the user not in the banned list. If this was not a banned list but an allowed list, we would say is the user in allowed list. So that's the concept of a allow list or block list. But that's not terribly relevant. What's relevant is the not in syntax. So this is really, really useful for checking to see if something is already in a list before you add it to a list, as an example. Any questions on that one?
I have a question.
Yes.
So this question can be applied to the other stuff that we were looking at too in regarding to Boolean variables. If I run this code in Visual Studio, is it going to output true, or do I need to do something else to make it output true?
So if you were running this in a regular Python program and not at the interactive compiler or interactive command line, you'd have to assign it to a variable or put in an if block or something like that. Online Python, as an example, I like this one. So I run this code. Let's see if I have my, come back, go away window. Where was I? Here. So if I have my requested toppings, blah, blah, blah. And I run this code, nothing will happen. So I would have to either assign it to a variable or put in an if. So I printed the variable, which is true, which the interactive command line thing does that magically. That's why I kind of like it for showing code examples like that. But then if I wanted to use it in an actual code structure, I just put it in an if block, like any other Boolean value, equivalent to if var. Multiple ways of accomplishing the same thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did everybody follow that? Or was that really too fast? All right. So, if statements. So, one test, one action. So, if something, do something. So, we kind of covered this already. We're taking that Boolean evaluation, the conditional evaluation, and putting it in that if statement, where you can say, now I'm printing you are old enough. The first line sets the age, the next one prints out information. So we kind of already covered that. But that's the structure of an if block. The code here, what I showed on the online compiler, was that this can be anything that evaluates to a Boolean true or false. This can be a Boolean value in a variable. This can be a conditional like this. Anything that can be evaluated to true or false can be put in here. There's a concept where I think I explicitly talk about in here called the truthiness of a variable, and we'll cover that at length. But anything that can be evaluated to a true or false can be used in an if statement. In addition to the if statement, when we want to start expanding that, if we want we want to check a condition and do something, but if that condition doesn't meet, we want to do something else, we use an else statement. So you'll notice they are lined up together. So the if and the else have the same indentation. In this case, there's no indentation. If age is greater than 18, we'll print out you're old enough to vote. Have you registered to vote? Else, sorry, you are too young to vote. Please register to vote as soon as you turn 18. So if the condition, we do the first block. Else, otherwise, we do the second block. So when this condition is not met, this code does not execute. No matter what the code is, if it's a function call, if it's whatever it is, it does not happen. It does not execute. only the condition that's met, the else condition in this case, executes. And then we have else if, or elif in Python. So if, else if, else. If we need to check more than one condition, we can do so. So let's imagine we are pricing tickets at a movie theater. If you are under the age of 4, your ticket is free. If you are under the age of 18, your ticket is $25. It's a very expensive movie today. If you're not under 4 or you're not under 18, otherwise your ticket is $40. Muted. I see you talking, but you're muted. Oh, somebody else. Okay. So the if-elif-else chain can support 0 or more else-if statements in there, elif statements. We could have a list of 300 else-if statements in there if we wanted to. Once one of the scenarios is evaluated as true, going top down, the rest are ignored. So if I had if age is under 4, followed by if age is under 5, if age is under 6, etc., the first one that evaluates to true is the only one that executes. Let me show you what I mean. Online compiler. So if age is 4, let's say we are age 3. Are we under age 4? Is age less than 4? Is age less than 18? It is. But because the first one evaluates to true, that's the only one that gets executed. So when I run this, you'll see I only see your admission cost is 0. I don't see your admission cost is 25, even though age is still under 3. If you wanted to do your code, if you are familiar with switch statements or case statements in other languages, and you wanted to do that kind of a thing, we don't have a switch statement in Python. What we do is we just take away the else. In this case, that doesn't really make sense. But if I wanted both actions to happen, I would take away the else, the el in front of the if. So the first one, my admission was 0 because I have an if-else statement. The second one is just 2 if statements. They are independent of each other. All right. Rolling through slides. So I was getting ahead of myself. If we want more than one action to happen based on different conditions, we could have multiple if statements that are not if-else-if. So in this example, I want to print out a custom output depending on the topping you are requesting. So if you have mushrooms, then we're saying add mushrooms. If you say pepperoni, we say pepperoni, extra cheese, we say add extra cheese, if those are in requested toppings. That's just showing the difference between if, else if, and just 3 if statements. Getting to the truthiness of variables, lists can be evaluated as either true or false. What it's doing is checking to see if there are any items in the list. So in this line of code, we have a requested items is empty. We check if requested toppings. If requested toppings, then we'll loop through the toppings, saying we'll print it out. Otherwise, are you sure you want a plain pizza? Because requested toppings was empty. But here you'll see I have a for loop embedded under my if block, if statement, and I have another layer of indentation. So in this couple lines of code, we have 3 layers of indentation. The one that's highlighted is indented under the for loop. So that will happen for every item in the requested toppings list. But only if the requested toppings variable evaluates to true. Meaning there's something in that list. So let's run this code too. So requested toppings is, I can ambiguify that a little bit. There we go. Requested toppings is empty. If requested toppings, for requested toppings, print, else print. So based on this, what's going to get printed? Are you sure you want an empty pizza? Because we have no requested toppings. Whoops, what did I do wrong? For, print, else, blah, blah, blah. Toppings, for string, and why is that wrong? That's not invalid syntax. Oh, this is like Python. I know what it is. This is Python. In this interpreter, it's Python 3.6, I think. And they added the formatted strings in Python 3.7. That's what it was. Dot format. So another way of doing the same thing. This should run. There we go. So you can see, are you sure you want a plain pizza? So again, requested toppings is empty, therefore if evaluates to false. But if I put something in it and run it, whoops, there. Now requested toppings is not empty, it has a value in it. If will evaluate to true. After that, I will do a for loop on that list, print out everything in that list, adding topping, and you'll see the else block does not happen.
Professor, I just ran that code, and it printed my word pepperoni out as a list.
Yeah, that's what I did. So requested topping.
Okay.
I had requested toppings accidentally. What do I have in the slides? In the slides, oh yeah, I actually have the list name here instead of instead of that. My little typo.
It fixed.
So if I quizzed everyone on this tomorrow, would everyone understand what I said?
Yes.
One thumbs up and one yes. Everybody else sleeping? Gonna watch the video later? Alright, let's roll. So if we wanted to have multiple lists, we can do all kinds of things with multiple lists. So in this case, we'll have a list of available toppings at our pizza place. Pizza is one of my favorite foods, so we're going to talk about pizza a lot. I was glad it was in the book. We'll have a list of available toppings: mushrooms, extra cheese, olives, pineapples, pepperoni, green peppers. And then we'll have a list of requested toppings: mushrooms, french fries, extra cheese. Somebody might want mushrooms or french fries on their pizza. It's weird, but they might. What our code is going to do is check and make sure every item in the requested toppings list is in the available toppings list. Does that make sense? I think from a logic standpoint. If a customer is requesting something, I want to make sure it's available. So looking at our code, first we will loop through the requested toppings so we can check every topping that's requested by the customer. So let me take this over to the compiler so we can run it if we want to. Knowing I'm going to have to take away the string formatting. we will check every requested topping and check, is the requested topping in the list of available toppings? If it is, we'll say we'll add the topping. If it's not, we'll say, sorry, we don't have it. We'll run that. And the first one we check is mushrooms. Mushrooms is in the available toppings, so we'll print out, yes, mushroom is in available toppings. So we print it out. We'll add mushrooms. The next one we check is French fries. If French fries in available toppings, well, it's not, so that's when our else block executes, because that in phrase evaluated to false. And so we print out, sorry, we don't have French fries. Last one being extra cheese, we validated extra cheese.
Is it case sensitive?
They are. Yep, great question. And to show, sorry, we don't have extra cheese. I don't yell, but that was my yelling. Yep, no extra cheese. It is case sensitive in the case of string comparisons, because that's really behind the scenes all it's doing is doing a string comparison to see if the first one is in the list. Good question. So here's a question. How would we make this in a case insensitive search? So how do we make this match that? And to make it even harder, how do we make it match? So right now, neither extra cheese will match.
Someone in the chat said to use the dot lower function.
Okay, where am I using the dot lower function?
And someone else said for a loop to iterate each topping to make it lowercase.
All right, well, let's start with the requested toppings. So for requested topping in requested toppings. I could check a lower here. If lowercase requested topping is in the list, great. And that would have worked at the beginning. If all of these were lowercase, that would have worked. Good first step.
And so you also have to put it after available toppings as well, the lower thing?
So where would I do that? You're on the right track, but how do I do that?
Would it be in the same line, number 6?
Available toppings. Let's see what happens. Like that?
Yes.
List object has no attribute lower. Remember, available topping, I knew that would happen, I was just seeing. Available toppings is a list, and therefore doesn't have string functions on it. But again, you're going in the right direction. I'm very comfortable with silence. A for loop to iterate each topping to make it lowercase. Yep, I think. Well, what do you mean, Raymond? Make a new list. Ooh, okay. How to make a new list? There are a million ways we could do that. Case fold. I have no idea what that is. Is that a thing?
I don't know. I just Googled it. It might be a thing.
If we haven't talked about it in class yet, you can't use it. Although now I'm curious what that is. I think you're all kind of on the right path. And I know based on the last 2 weeks of class, we have the tools to do it.
I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but I'm assuming you could insert everything from that list into a new list.
Okay, how would I do that? Walk me through it.
I don't know, somebody help me out with that.
Here, I'll give you a freebie. New list equals empty list. Han says the suspense is killing him. See, I get paid no matter whether I get through my slides or not, so.
Could we use the dot insert or dot append?
Mm-hmm. We could.
That's where I was going with that initial thought.
Okay. What am I appending?
Available toppings.
So we want to append every value from available toppings. I agree with you on that. You could have a for loop that takes each topping, make it lowercase, and append it to a new list. That is exactly what I'm trying to do. What should I type? Someone tell me exactly what to type. You did say for loop, so I'll type for.
It's for available topping and available toppings, right? But then after that, I don't know.
That's all right. Teamwork. That's a great start. Well, we know we want to put them in the new list, right? New list dot append available topping. Available topping. So now new list will end up looking just exactly like available toppings.
Don't they both have to be plural? Available toppings? Or am I?
For available topping, singular, in the list,
Okay.
plural, new list, append available topping. Yeah, I want to append the individual item. What do I want to do this individual item?
We can put the dot lower function on that, correct?
Yes, 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 yes. Dot lower. Okay. Run the code. Whoopsie. What?
I think you need to take the lower out of the other for function.
Oh, thank you. Yes. I've forgotten I put that down there. Okay. Still doesn't work. We're missing something. One thing.
Need to put the new list in the second function instead.
Good job. Look at that. We did it. Go team. So that was one way to do it. The cool kids way of doing it would be, remember our string or list evaluation or whatever it's called? think that should do it too. Does that syntax look familiar? That's the thing we're not supposed to show new Python developers. But the more we show it, the easier we'll get to understand it. So basically what we just did, but in one line of code. So good job. That is a perfectly valid way of accomplishing the task, as is the second one. And unless I explicitly ask you to write a string, a list. Shoot, now my brain turned off. What the heck's it called? Week 2. List evaluation? List comprehension. I knew that. Unless I explicitly ask you to write a list comprehension method like that, either would work. Another thing we could have done up here, we could have done available toppings equals new list. Something like that. All are valid ways of doing it. Who did I lose? Had to have lost somebody. If I didn't, I'm the best teacher in the world. Which I'm not. All right. We will continue. We're almost done. Styles. So when you're writing out your Python code, we want spaces between things like the variable, the whatever you call that thing, the symbol, the comparator, and the other side of the comparator. Don't shove them all together. It just makes it harder to read. And for now, ignore that part. We're going to go through page 84 of our book. Who has a book? Python Crash Course? Page 84. So this is where I want to go end to end. What it looks like to create a GitHub repository, hook it up to Visual Studio Code, and push our code to GitHub. So what I'll do, let's start in GitHub. Ta-da, GitHub. I'm going to create a new repository, upper left-hand corner. Under my user, how many users do I only have one? For my user, I'm going to create a repository name. So spring or fall 450 2020 practice. That'll be my repository name. A place to store some code. I'll make it public. I'll add a README. I'll add a gitignore. Gitignore is basically a macro list of file extensions to not check into GitHub. I'll leave it at that. License. I'll make it a MIT license so anyone in the world can use this code. I will hit create repository. And now I have a fall 450 2020 practice repository. All right, I know I'm going to need to clone this into my Visual Studio Code. So I'm clicking this code button in the upper right-hand corner. Ish. I'm going to use HTTPS. Normally I use SSH, but I already have all my keys set up and stuff, so I'm going to do it probably what you guys are trying to do. Right now I'm just copying and pasting that, or copying that repository. Then, everybody with me so far? It's a public repository. That means anyone in the universe can see it, which is what, for your code, you need to do so I can see it. So your repositories all need to be public. So now I'm in Visual Studio Code. And I'm closing that. What is that? That's my Explorer. I am missing something. I am missing a command. but I think I can go view the command palette. That's what I want to see. And I'm looking at my command palette, which might be at the top of your window already, or under View, Command Palette. Thankfully, it's right at the top, but I'm looking for git clone, because I'm going to clone my Git repository. Git is the version control system. GitHub is a website with cool features on top of Git, but the underlying version control system is Git. So I'm going to click that. Please provide repository URL or pick a repository source. So mine looks like this: https://github.com Chris Fauerbach fall 450 2020 practice.git. That is what I copy. Yep.
Sorry. My GitHub clone or Git clone doesn't show up there in my palette.
It doesn't.
I got a command git clone not found for some reason.
I had that issue too. I'm not gonna just assume that it was the same as mine, but I'm using a Mac and then I had to run this through Parallels, and so I had the wrong Git downloaded. And after I downloaded the Windows Git, it popped up after that.
2 questions, Mac person. Who was that talking? I missed it, sorry.
That was Drew.
Drew, why are you running Parallels? Why aren't you just doing Visual Studio Code native?
Because I couldn't get Python to run through my Visual Studio Code.
Oh. Okay.
So I had to, because apparently Mac is not supported.
Okay. We'll fix that. Well, right now, so we'll figure out why Git clone is not there for you. There might be a, what is this thing called? An extension. So I have a GitHub extension, but I am 95% sure the Git native is built into Visual Studio Code. So I'm really surprised to hear it's not there, but we can figure that out. Are you on Windows, Caitlin? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me run through this, then we'll come back to that. So I just pressed enter, and it's asking me for a place to put it. I'll put it in my downloads, select repository location, and it's cloning. Would you like to open the clone repository? Open. On the left, you'll see the 3 files that match what's in GitHub: git ignore, license, and readme.md markdown. Oops. Git ignore is all this Python junk. License, MIT license, and a readme file, a place to store some code. For those of you that can follow along, how many other folks don't have that Git clone?
I don't as well.
Okay. Are you clicking Control P or Control Shift P to get to the palette? It's all. I'm on a Mac again, so I don't know what it's a Shift Command P on a Mac, but it's under View View Command Palette. All right. So there we go. So now this is just a normal file system thing on the left. So let's say I want to make a new folder. I think that's a new folder. We'll call it, or is that new? Yeah, it's a new folder. Page 84. That's my folder. In there, I'm going to make a new file. We're going to call it main. No, do they tell me what to call it? It's about aliens, so we'll call it aliens.py. All right, so now I have my aliens.py file. And let's see, aliens.py. The thing with Python, if you open a Python file, in the lower left-hand corner-ish, you'll see different Python interpreters. Python 2.7 comes native on a Mac. I don't want that. Python 3.7, 3.7, 3. I'm going to pick my 3.8. I'm going to get into Anaconda in a minute and how this ties into Anaconda. For now, it doesn't really matter all that much, as long as you pick a Python 3.7 or Python 3.8. So, Python command, Chris, this will be page 84 assignment, not assignment, but whatever. So I put in some files. So what I do here, on the left, I have this icon. It looks like the dots in the branches. That's my source control window. So I'm clicking on that. And here it's telling me what changes I have. So aliens.py is a new file. It's an uncommitted, untracked change or untracked file. Settings.json is a Visual Studio Code file. I don't want to track that, so I'm going to, I don't know how to do that. But anyway, for aliens.py, I want to add it, so I'm going to click the Add button. Staged changes. This is actually showing me a difference between what's in GitHub versus local, which is kind of cool. But to commit it, I have to type in a message. I'm going to type first commit. I am going to press the commit button. And so now that is committed. The thing with GitHub, or with Git, is that it's committed locally. So now I need to push it. I need to push it back to GitHub. This is where it should ask me for credentials. Okay, so this is using my GitHub plugin. So here it took me to GitHub to do OAuth. I don't know what my password is, but thankfully my password manager does. And then I can go back into Visual Studio Code, open, and you'll see up here it's doing something with the little slidey line things. And now it's done. So if I go back to GitHub and I hit refresh, I should see that folder that I just created and that file in that folder. Yours, instead of, if you have the Git plugin and not the GitHub plugin, it might ask you for your username and password instead of the OAuth thing. Similar, same process. But the stages are make a new file, add it or track it with the plus sign, commit it, and then push it. Add, track, push. Add, commit, push. Add, track, commit, push. Yeah, add, track, commit, push. Git clone missing in Visual Studio Code Windows. No source code. No. How do I get Git back? Git path, setting my GitHub. Ooh, that's ugly. You're not on a Mac because then you need to code build stuff. Look in the plugins over on the left, the boxes, and see if you can find something about Git or GitHub.
I installed GitHub and then I was going to restart my Visual Studio because I figured it needed to be closed down and opened back up. And I can't get it to open now, so when it opens, I'll try it.
Welcome to computers. All right, Anaconda. So
I figured out you just have to install Git for Windows. I can link it in the chat here.
Yes.
It's working for me now.
I also installed that first too.
Oh,
Okay.
really? I don't know.
No, I mean like I just installed it, but I can't get Visual Studio
Okay.
open to check.
Okay. When we're done, if you want to restart your computer or something, I'll stick around if you want to come back and we can check it, but we can do it later. Okay, Anaconda. We are not using this yet. This will really be important when we start using libraries for dependencies, when we start doing things like the data analysis or APIs or whatever we end up doing soon. The key here is going to be your environments on the left. Well, there are a bunch of things we'll have to worry about, but the environment is an important part. So Python gives you what's called a virtual environment. So you can have your application managing its own dependencies without affecting your whole computer. So you can have your one application that has a dependency on a certain version of the requests library. But another application can have a different dependency on a different version of the request library, and they don't conflict. So we'll go over this at length, but the general idea is you create a new environment, pick your Python version, create. It takes a second to create. Takes more than a second to create. Real-time demos are fun. I need a new computer. That'll eventually happen. So when I go to Visual Studio Code, I should see things like that in my list of Python interpreters down at the lower left. If you noticed, one of these is called Spotify Test 1. In my Python list of interpreters, one of those is Python, where was it? There it is, Spotify Test 1. In that case, it was Python 3.7.6. So I would select that, and I could run my file against that version of Python. The code didn't do anything, and so that one did nothing. All right, we're at 8 o'clock. We've been here for over an hour. Let's take a 10-minute break. We'll run through the code, try it yourself stuff on page 81. We'll talk about the homework, and then we'll be done. It's a 10-minute break. Come back at 8:10. Cool? All right. I believe we are all back. Anyone not back? Just kidding. All right. Let's look at some coding challenges in the book. So page 84 of the book, we have something that says, imagine an alien was just shot down in a game. Create a variable called alien color and assign it a value of green, yellow, or red. Write an if statement to test whether the alien's color is green. If it is, print a message that the player earned 5 points. Write one version of this program that passes the if test and another that fails. The version that fails will have no output. All right. So the first thing it said, create an alien color variable. Alien color variable equals, someone shout out a color. Green, yellow, or red?
Red.
I heard red first. Write an if statement to test whether the alien's color is green. How do I do that? Do I need to start the lecture over tonight?
No, what did you ask? I was typing.
Write an if statement to see if that color is green. Anyone? Do I need to call on you individually? I can totally do that.
Isn't it just if alien color equals green?
Looks good to me. So if I run this, what will happen?
And come out false.
Nothing will happen. Exactly. Running Python. Done. Nothing happened. So, good. Now, if we do it with green, and I hit run, you earned 5 points. Pretty easy. All right. So we wrote the 2 versions. That was good. Alien colors 2. Choose a color for an alien as you did in exercise 5.3 and write an if-else chain. If the alien's color is green, print a statement that the player just earned 5 points. If it isn't green, print a statement that the player just earned 10 points. Write one version that runs each of those. Cool. If it's green, you earn 5 points. How do I do? And otherwise.
Else.
Else. And this one's green. I earn 5 points. We'll go back to red. And we'll earn 10 points. Congratulations. How can I make it clear on execute? I don't know. I'll deal with that later. All right. Alien colors 3. Turn your if-else chain from exercise 5.4 into an if-elif-else chain. Green is 5, yellow is 10, red is 15. Green, hold on, I'm going to write that down in a comment so I remember. Green is 5, yellow is 10, red is 15. All right, if alien color is green, you earn 5 points. Good. What do I have to change this to?
elif alien color is equal to, I don't remember, yellow.
That's why I have code comments. So now I remember. Else, whoops, fix that indentation. Print, you earned 15 points. Is that right?
It looks right.
How many points do I get for purple?
None. So shouldn't it be if again?
There you go. Good. Now, purple should not get any points, but red should get 15 points. Awesome. See, this isn't that... I like how this is doing kind of step-by-step building on what we've done. Stages of life, favorite food. Okay, there's different stuff. I am going to give you a sneak peek at something. So what I'm seeing here is a very repetitive process, manual code changes to test it and all that kind of stuff. I want to do it a little differently. We haven't talked about... Shut up, Alexa. I mean, Siri. Sorry. I want to do this a little different. So we haven't talked about functions, but we're going to make a function. So we define a function, get points, and my parameter is going to be the color of the alien I killed. Killed color. I'm doing this without having gone over it in slides because I know you all have programming experience. Right? So my default return value is going to be 0. I'm going to get 0 points. At the end of my function, I'm going to return my return value. Let's change that to a better name. Earned points. There we go. So how would I change this so I can do equals get points red. I'm being lazy and doing it like that. What do I have to change in here to return the right number of points? Because right now, if I run this, I should get 0 points. Red. Whoops. Red. There we go. For red, you got 0 points. What the heck? Oh, that's fine. Python 3.7. Oh, it's not running that Python interpreter. Interesting. I have no idea what version it's running. Okay. How do I make that right?
Would you change all the elifs to if statements?
I would not. I would not. So, since we're dealing with a function, just like most programming languages, functions have a name, they have parameters, and they have potentially a return value. So I want to return the number of points from this function. We've dealt with variables already. So I have a variable earned points is 0. And I'm going to return earned points at the end. So if killed color is red, I want 15 points. Go on,
So I don't know what the names of the functions are, but instead of printing out you've earned a number of points, you need to actually add to the earned points. But I don't know how to do it.
That's all right. I'm realizing I'm going to change that to killed color. All I'm going to do is set earned points to the value I want. So now if my killed color is green, I get 5 points. Earned points is getting assigned the value of 5.
I'm going to show you guys how you can actually install Python.
So when I run this, it did not work because I forgot to hit save. There we go. For red, you got 15 points. So the reason I'm doing this is I want to be able to test my code to make sure the logic works. To do that, I can do a whole bunch of stuff. I want to make sure that it works. So if we were writing code, we would write unit tests. We would write validation of our code. So in my tests, I'm going to assert that get points red, I think this is the syntax, is 15. Yellow should be 10. Green should be 5. Okay, it ran. Good. So we have tested our code to make sure it worked. What this is doing, assert means make sure this comparison is true. So get points is red equals 15. We're comparing the return value of this function to the numerical value 15. To see why we do this, let's say we have a new rule at work where now the blue guys should be 3 points. If I run this now, based on these 6 lines of code, 7 lines of code, 8 lines of code in this function, what will the return value of that function be if the parameter is blue? What will earned points be if killed color is blue?
Someone in the chat said 0.
Someone in the chat said 0. Yes, exactly right. So if I hit play, I hit save, so I hit play. Now I'm getting an assertion error. So as a developer now, I know I have a problem with my code. My test cases did not pass. So how do I make that pass?
You put in blue.
Another elif block, right?
Yeah.
That's my new rule. So now I hit play, and no output, therefore it all passed. So this is doing this kind of development. We are starting to think about our code as modules. So now essentially this mapping between the color of the alien we're killing and its point value is a module of its own. It's a function in this case. But that unit of code can be reused anywhere in our application now. And we can start testing those small blocks of code independent of each other to make sure they do what they're supposed to do. So this is kind of a sneak peek at unit testing, which is a very, very important concept for development. I'm not going to quiz you on unit testing yet, but don't be surprised if you start seeing code like this. So when we go through that kind of example in the book where they just say, write code to do something, it's a better habit, in my opinion, to start organizing your code in functions. Eventually we'll start doing classes and all that kind of stuff, but for right now, that function that does some work, it's good to have as its own module. All right, based on all of that, we have some more homework. Yay, homework. Oops, I need to fix this. I want the week 3 before the file name. But anyway, there's another one of these examples on page 89 called check users. So it is 5-10 on page 89. Do the following to create a program that simulates how websites ensure that everyone has a unique username. The reason I went over that code structure of doing a function is because that's how I want this homework done. I want a function called check users that takes 2 lists as parameters, one being current users and one being new users. That will make more sense when you read the description of what the homework assignment is. But I want that function to return true or false based on if the new users are in the current users, something like that. No, that's not right. Sorry, not return. I want it to do the printing out like it says in the book. So do what the book says. And so there are 4 bullets under 510. I want what you submit to be all 4 of them in one piece of code. Sound good?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right. Since you're here, I do want week 3, username repo, folder week 3, then your program. And this time, unlike last time, I'm going to create an assignment in Canvas so you can submit that URL to me. So when you're in GitHub, well, I'll go to my GitHub again. And let's go to any of my repositories, doesn't matter. So let's say this was your file, aliens.py. That URL is good. or the raw URL. Either way, it doesn't matter. Just send me that URL for your code so I can just open it up and look at it. All right. As usual, I'm going to stop recording